This is the new Kia ProCeed. No, not the 3-door hatchback, but a 5-door coupe-estate, better known as the shooting brake. But don't worry, Kia assures this model is just as sporty, only targeted at a different audience. So, who's going to pay about €700 more for an estate with a 30-litre smaller boot? Kia claims this body style is aimed at a niche unseen in the mass car segment, because so far the shooting brake was available only on premium models. I can imagine an old 3-door ProCeed owner who's, well, 10 years older, he has a family and he misses the sporty characteristics of a car which no longer fulfills his needs. Enter Kia with a sporty alternative for a regular seed estate, which, to make things more confusing, is called the sports wagon. But the ProCeed apparently is even more sporty. This sportiness is manifested with a 43mm lower roofline compared to the regular estate and 5mm lower ground clearance. If not for the larger wheels, ground clearance would have been 10mm lower. Kia claims the ProCeed is also more sporty to drive, and we'll get to that in a moment. Another sporty accent is the rear window, which is slanted at a 64.2-degree angle versus 50.9 for the regular estate. This makes this shooting brake a completely different car, says Kia. It's so different that all the sheet metal behind the front fender is unique to the ProCeed. Some cars look best at a certain angle. In case of the ProCeed, in my opinion, the best is the rear 3/4. At this angle you can see all the design effort. By the way, do you see a bit of Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo here? Look at the rear window, the rear lights, the line which was supposed to be joining them but is broken in the middle for some reason. But the rounded tailgate is Panamera Sport Turismo all the way. What's missing is the funny pop-up spoiler at the top and a decent exhaust. And there's no decent exhaust because there's not much under the bonnet. Engine lineup is even more modest than in the estate. There is a 1-liter 120 horsepower turbo with a manual shifter, 1.4 140 horsepower turbo with a manual or a 7-speed DCT, a 1.6 204 horsepower petrol, also manual or DCT, and a 1.6 diesel 136 horsepower, also manual or DCT. The diesel takes AdBlue and all petrol engines get gasoline particulate filter. Thanks to these measures, ProCeed meets the Euro 6 D-Temp emissions norm. We'll talk about the interior later, and now let's go for a drive. Kia has introduced a number of tweaks to the ProCeed to make the car feel more sporty. Shocks, springs, stabilizers, steering are all slightly different to the regular estate, making the ProCeed a car which you want to drive, rather than one in which you just want to get to your destination. Because of the boot, rear springs are 22% stiffer than in the hatchback, and the rear stabilizer is 3% stiffer, which I'm sure makes all the difference when you hear about it. Apparently this also means better handling and greater comfort, and as far as I'm concerned, from the driver's position, yes, this car is surprisingly comfortable, but at the same time you can feel it is stiffer, it is tighter, it is closer to the road. You can feel all that. So, in the back, despite 22% stiffer springs and 3% stiffer stabilizer, it's actually pretty comfortable. I don't feel that the ride is particularly jittery, like for example in a, what was it, Hyundai i30 Fastback. Yeah, in the back there, that was terrible. Here, it's actually quite good. I don't mind being here. I'm comfortable when it comes to the seats. They are firm but supportive. My only concern is that these front seats are quite large, quite wide. They are sporty kind of seats, so you don't see much in front of you. So if you have motion sickness, or generally you just want to see outside, you will have to spend most of your time kind of slanted towards the middle. but otherwise it's fine. Now, while I'm back here, there's one more thing I want to point out, and that's the rear visibility. I mean, even sitting here, this slanted back window and the falling roofline, and that beep was the lane assist. Anyway, the slanted window and the falling roofline mean that visibility is pretty bad. How bad? Well, terrible. Terrible. That's what I can say about visibility, even from here. And when looking in the rearview mirror while sitting in the front, now that's really atrocious. But otherwise, as a passenger, I feel fine, and now, if you don't mind, I will return to the front. Steering is electrically assisted, and according to Kia, the steering ratio is less than 13:1, so on paper this makes the steering very direct. But the hatchback has the same steering ratio, and as I recall, the steering was okay, it was pretty direct, but it's not to the point that I would sing its praise. I think here what really makes a difference are the changes to the suspension. As I said, the car is tighter, the car feels better planted, the car feels more sure-footed. So yeah, whatever they did, it works. Today I'm driving a GT line. It's red, so it looks nicer than the white GT, which was also available on the press footage. And anyway, GT is going to be a niche. Now, GT gets 18-inch rims and Michelin Pilot Sport 4 rubber as standard. On the GT line, 17-inch rims are standard, but for the DCT cars there is an option to specify larger wheels, like on this example. Like all new cars these days, also Kia ProCeed gets ESP traction control as standard. There is also torque vectoring, which brakes inside wheels during cornering to reduce understeer. Does it work? To an extent, yes, but I doubt that you're going to take this 1.4 140 horsepower Kia GT line and do any truck driving. I mean, it's not really for that, but yeah, on a twisty road it's fine. My test car is powered by a 1.4 140 horsepower turbo petrol engine mated to a DCT. According to WLTP tests, this car should use between 6–6.5 liters per 100 kilometers, depending on the spec. Disclaimer: this is an international launch event, first drive, so we get to drive these cars only for a bit, and I'm on unfamiliar roads, there have been some mountains and motorways, so whatever result I get today is not really reliable. But if you want to know, since leaving Barcelona about 100 kilometers ago, and yeah, I've got about 6–7 liters per 100 kilometers, depending on if I'm driving with motorway speeds or slightly slower. Now, this engine, I noticed, is very susceptible to changes in terrain. So I had 6.5 going on a straight level road, and then all of a sudden there was a slight incline, and within a kilometer it was like 7.5. So it is, yeah, very susceptible to changes. Careful about that. The 7-speed double-clutch transmission, or DCT models, get drive modes, normal or sport. The latter speeds up reaction to the gas pedal, makes shifts faster, and cuts back power steering. ProCeed gets 6 airbags as standard, high beam assist, driver attention warning, lane keeping assist, collision avoiding assist. The car can also be equipped with lane following assist, which helps you to steer on the motorway. The system works between 0 and 180 kilometers per hour. I'm sorry, but today I'm not going to test the 180 kilometers per hour bit, because there are plenty of speed cameras here in Spain. There is also active cruise control with stop-and-go function, blind spot monitoring, cross-traffic warning during reversing, parking assistant, pedestrian detection with driver warning. A few years ago, driver aids and safety systems like these were reserved only for premium brands, and even today, besides Kia and Hyundai, only few mass market brands offer so many of them in a single car. And now let's talk about the interior. This car gets these nice optional sporty seats, which are leather and suede. Not Alcantara, suede, it says in the press release. Now, there's also an optional 8-inch monitor instead of the 7-inch infotainment display. It's got TomTom sat-nav, but that's rubbish. You want to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto usually works in Kia and Hyundai cars, except this one. Probably some early software something glitch, so Android Auto just crashed on me in 2 cars yesterday. However, my friend was using Apple CarPlay and that worked perfect. So, as usual, Android Auto fails. The ProCeed cockpit is similar to that in the regular hatchback and estate. It's logically laid out with cup holders, storage, USB and 12-volt sockets, deep door bins as well. ProCeed also gets keyless access and ignition, regardless of whether you choose GT or GT line. Sorry, we trailed off a bit with this sporty handling and Android Auto stuff, but ProCeed is, after all, a shooting brake. Anyway, the boot is 594 liters. That's 30 liters smaller than in the sports wagon. I appreciate the cargo arrangement system. I like this aluminum thing which slides back and forth and helps you keep your suitcases and whatever you have here in place. There are shopping bag hooks, which is also good, and there are handles which release the backrests so you can fold the seats easily. Now, there are 2 storage areas under the floor, and one of them, the one here, is to store the boot cover. Now, if you like the electrically operated tailgate, that's unfortunately an option, and it costs about €1,000 depending on the spec. And now, let's go and see what it's like in the back. Backrest in the second row split 40, 20 and 40, so you can easily transport longer items. It's quite comfortable back here. There is decent legroom with this seat slid slightly backwards because these are electric seats and they slide backwards for comfortable access. So normally I would have a little bit more legroom here. Let me just fold that. Armrest, cup holders. So yeah, there isn't much space for my feet, unfortunately. There are air vents which are a part of some sort of equipment package. They're usually on higher trim levels. Unfortunately, there is no 12-volt socket or a USB port. Really, Kia? Come on. Kia ProCeed prices start at €27,700 for the 1.4 t-gdi GT line. The most expensive is the GT, obviously, with a 204 horsepower 1.6 liter engine, and that starts at $31,000. But if you want to go wild with the options, you can add another 3 to 4 grand. This GT line with a 1.4 engine, DCT and options costs about $31,000. Let's say I'm buying Kia's plan to replace the 3-door hatchback with a shooting brake. Compact 3-door hatchbacks are not big sellers. There was a model to recycle, someone pitched an idea, and here we are. If you want a proper hot hatch, there's always the 5-door GT. Nobody expects the ProCeed to be a bestseller, but maybe it will attract a few new buyers and maybe some former Kia owners as well. And what do you think about the new Kia ProCeed? Is it a proper shooting brake or just a weird estate? Or maybe Kia should have kept the 3-door hatch? Let me know in the comment section below, subscribe if you haven't, and join me for new reviews every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.